Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Burgess Owens. Shackled in the belly of a slave ship, an 8-year-old boy named Silas Burgess came to America to be sold on an auction block. By the grace of God and the courage of slaves who believed in freedom, Silas escaped through the Underground Railroad and settled in the great state of Texas. He went on to become a successful entrepreneur. He built his community's first church, first elementary school, and purchased 102 acres of farmland, which he paid off in 2 years. I'm here today, a candidate for Congress, because of my great-great-grandfather, Silas Burgess. I was raised in the South during the days of Jim Crow and the KKK. Even through the challenges of segregation, we were taught that anything is possible in America. When I was 22 years old, I thought all my dreams had come true when I was drafted by the New York Jets. 10 years later, with a Pro Bowl nod and a Super Bowl championship under my belt, I left the NFL to start a business. I thought I could never fail, but years later I did, and I lost everything. As I moved my family of 6 into a 1-bedroom basement apartment in Brooklyn, New York, I had a choice to make: to feel sorry for myself or get to work. I worked as a chimney sweep during the day and a security guard at night. It was humbling to be recognized cleaning a chimney by someone who once cheered me as an NFL fan. But those hard days would pay off, and eventually I started a rewarding career in the corporate world. We live in a country where we're encouraged to dream big, where second chances are at the core of our American DNA. We don't hear that same message from Nancy Pelosi's Congress. Career politicians, elitists, and even a former bartender want us to believe it's impossible. They want us to believe that what I did, what my great-great-grandfather did, is impossible for ordinary Americans. As patriots, we know better. This November, we stand at a crossroad. Mobs torch our cities while popular members of Congress promote the same socialism that my father fought against in World War II. We have a Democratic candidate for president who says that I'm not black if I don't vote for him. Now more than ever, we need leaders who stand by their principles and won't compromise their values for political opportunities. Now more than ever, we need leaders who will stand up to the lawlessness supported by the radical left. This November, we have an opportunity to reject the mob mentality and once again be the America that my great-great-grandfather believed in. During the Trump administration, business ownership among blacks, Hispanics, and females have reached all-time highs. Those same groups enjoyed record-low unemployment and unprecedented prosperity, and we're just getting started. I'm running for Congress because we don't need more career politicians. We need a few more chimney sweeps. We need more leaders like President Trump who understand the freedoms that make up the fabric of America. My fellow Americans, specifically my Democrat and independent friends, it is now time for us to unite and put aside partisan barriers. Help us win back the House, keep the Senate, and give our president 4 more years, and I promise you, we will make you proud. Thank you, and God bless the United States of America.
I'm Bruce Karasik, co-founder of the Jewish Republican Alliance and JRA Nation. We're so happy to have Congressman Burgess Owens here with us today. We'll be speaking with Congressman Owens in just a few minutes, but first, the birth of the United States was started with a great document, the Declaration of Independence. And then in 1963, Martin Luther King, talking about the Declaration of Independence, said that our founders were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. Martin Luther King's faith in the American dream never wavered. He said, but we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so we have come to cash this check, a check that will be given us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. Great words from a great man. It's time to remind all Americans, in the words of Martin Luther King, about freedom for all and the fierce urgency of now. We can no longer accept the status quo. We are a divided nation, but we must also be reminded that in America, Powers of government only come from the consent of the governed. And so today, keeping in mind with the intent of our founders and the words of Martin Luther King, we can no longer sanction so many of the actions of our government. And in the spirit of Martin Luther King's words about the fierce urgency of now, we cannot afford to be silent and watch our nation crumble before our very eyes. And so we do not give our consent. We do not give our consent to allowing the government to unfairly raid the office of a true American hero, Rudy Giuliani. We do not consent to continue to have to wear masks even after we've been vaccinated. We no longer consent to staying in our homes and allowing the government to steal our freedoms. We do not consent to open borders and giving our hard-earned tax dollars to illegal aliens while American businesses are failing because of the Democrat shutdown of our government. We do not consent to social media and others to prevent President Trump, another true American hero, from speaking. We do not consent to John Kerry's betrayal of our closest ally in the Middle East, Israel, and the news media's refusal to investigate it. We do not consent to Joe Biden's betrayal of Israel by trying to force the Iran nuclear deal down their throats and by giving hundreds of millions of dollars to the Palestinians without preconditions. We do not consent to allow big tech to censor conservatives. We do not consent to the cancel culture. We do not consent to continued murder, robbery, and other violent crimes in our streets, nor will we stand by and allow our mostly good police officers to be vilified. We do not consent to seeing people living in tents in our big cities while Democrats turn their backs on the problem. And we do not consent to election fraud, cheat by mail voting, ballot harvesting, voting without ID, for without free and fair elections, America will not survive. And finally, we do not consent to Democrats bankrupting our nation and leaving behind a pile of debt for our children and our grandchildren. And so the Jewish Republican Alliance, a true alliance with all who share our values, is giving all of you an opportunity to get informed, get involved, and make a difference. Thank you all for being here. And now I would like to introduce fellow co-founder Mitch Silberman. Mitch.
Hello, JRA community. It is always so great when we are together. So there's a legendary football coach, and he's getting his team ready for the big game. He has them involved in a very intense scrimmage, and they're practicing. But he notices there's one player who's not giving his all, not doing his best, not helping the team. The coach had enough. He said to the player, "You out." And then he turned to the rest of the team and said, "Continue to play." Well, as most of you know, football is a game of 11 on 11. So the remaining players turned to the coach and said, "Coach, we only have 10 players on the field." To which the coach responded, "You had 10 players before, but now everybody knows it." Isn't that the way it is with some of the Republicans that we elect to office? We send them to do the right thing. They get there and they don't do the right thing. They vote a certain way. They don't do certain things. We wonder, what's going on? What happened? Well, the truth is they were never really on our side, but now we know it. Now we all know it. And who do we have to thank for that? President Donald J. Trump. You know, amongst his many accomplishments, one of his biggest was exposing and trying to drain the swamp. You know, Bruce and I could do an entire hour, entire show on President Trump's incredible list of accomplishments. And after each one, I would proclaim Dayenu. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, every year at the Passover Seder, we recount the story of Moses and God leading the Israelis out of Egypt and out of bondage into freedom. And we list all of the amazing things that happened. And after each one, we say Dayenu, meaning that would have been enough. If he only did this, if only he did that, that would have been enough. So that's how I feel about President Trump's incredibly long list of accomplishments, Dayenu. So what do? He went in and he showed us how deep, pervasive, and how dangerous and treacherous the swamp is. Now, we knew the swamp was filled with Democrats. Many of us were dismayed to find out how many Republicans were part of that swamp. So what do? We get behind the winners. We get behind the people who value Judeo-Christian beliefs and Christian values. We get behind those that fight for American exceptionalism. We get behind those that cherish our Constitution. There are people, leaders, politicians, and organizations that are in it to win it. You have to throw all of your support behind them. You know, there's lots of sayings when you talk about there's two kinds of people, there's three kinds of people. Well, in this context, there's three kinds of people. There are those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and those that have no idea what the hell is happening. And sadly, the current occupant of the White House is probably the latter category. But you, my dear J area community, you are clearly part of the first category. You are the people that make things happen. How do I know this? Because you're a member of the Jewish Republican Alliance. We are your home for conservative values. We are where you help take a stand for America and Israel. So you can survive without a community, but you can't thrive without a community. So continue to stay informed, get involved, and make a difference. Thank you. And now I have the distinct honor, and I'm so excited to introduce Congressman Burgess Owens. He is the US representative for Utah's 4th Congressional District. He was one of the first 3 Black Americans to be offered a football scholarship at the University of Miami. He earned a Bachelor of Science and degree in biology and chemistry, selected as a first-team All-American, inducted into the Hall of Fame of Outstanding College Athletes of America, and into the University of Miami's Hall of Fame and Ring of Honor. He was a New York Jets first-round draft choice and elected as the Jets defensive team captain for 3 seasons. Finally, he was a Super Bowl champion with the Oakland Raiders in the 1980 season. He's also the author of the best-selling book, and I love this title, Liberalism, or How to Turn Good Men into Whiners, Weenies, and Wimps, and also Why I Stand, From Freedom to the Killing Fields of Socialism. Currently, he's on many committees in Congress, including the Committee on Education and Labor, the Judiciary, and he's also selected to serve as the NRCC Executive Committee. Congressman, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, well, Mitch and Bruce. First of all, appreciate your opening. I really do. And if I could just start off by saying this, with all the things we've done in the past, the most important, I guess, accolade is that we love our country. You know, we're proud to be Americans, and that's what really makes us go all good. And something you mentioned when you talked about Martin Luther King, that is faith in America. I tell you what, we get back to that, understand that our foundation gives us every reason to know we're going to win in the end. That's what it comes down to. So look forward to this, the time we'll be spending together the next few minutes, and look forward to talking with the audience for sure.
Well, thank you, Congressman Owens. It's such a pleasure to have you on. You know, one of the issues that I mentioned in my opening remarks, and I've been talking about it for a long time, is free and fair elections. You know, I know you've been a big proponent of the Georgia election law that was passed. I hear that Florida is about to pass a law. But how do we take control of that issue when we're being vilified in so many ways for being racist or being against fairness, when all we want is fair and free and fair elections?
Well, it starts off with, first of all, we have to begin knowing who we are. And I'm going to talk about this in more detail. But what Americans cannot do is allow the left to define us. We're the greatest country in the history of mankind. Any of us who know our history at all, who realize how much we've gone and progressed over the years, can be nothing but proud of who we are. So if you start off with that in mind, it doesn't really matter what they call us, does it? Because we know who we are. We're people that have shown the rest of the world what it is to every single generation become better and better, looking at each other from inside out versus outside in. So that's the beginning of it. The other part is, it's just, and I think it was Mitch was saying earlier, the great thing about President Trump's legacy is that he pulled back the curtains. You know, we've had conversations. You know, we are a country that lives in this freedom bubble. You know, we get up every single day, we go to work, we raise our kids, we take our vacation, build our memories, look at retirement one day, and never knowing that at the end of the day, every single day, there's evil at our doorstep. That's undermining our foundations. Have been doing this for decades. Well, it took President Trump for us to realize this is what's happening, because they were all in. He was such a threat to them that they could no longer be, quote, progressive. They had to be all in. They had to be in your face and no shame. And what I saw, for instance, in Pennsylvania, I lived in the Pennsylvania area for 23 years. And it's an open secret that they cheat. I mean, it's comical. Everybody accepts it. We know it. Matter of fact, it's Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that has the most former Congress people and the folks who've been elected to office that's gone to jail, 32 of them. The closest thing to that is New York with 23. So that being said, what we saw is this has been happening across our country, but they've never had a reason to go all in across our nation at one time. So what we're doing right now is we're having conversations about how do we make sure that when people go into that poll and they come out, they know that their vote counted. And no matter what side of the aisle we're on, what we've done in the past is, yes, we might be upset that it didn't go our way, but guess what we did the next 2 years or 4 years? We just put our message out stronger, help people to resonate and try to win the next time. That's what we've always done it. Well, this time around, we're starting to see that we have too many people having doubts. So yes, many of us are very disappointed that we didn't win back the House, even though we came very close. We'll talk about that in a minute or so. We lost the Senate and we lost our executive branch. But what happened is that we're now across our country having conversations about how to make sure that from this point moving forward, we can walk away from the poll booth feeling confident that it was done right. Never have we had this type of consistency across our nation. What Georgia just did their thing. I think Arizona is right now going through this process. If I remember Iowa, there's several of them that are now tweaking their system. So when people come out, they know it's fair, it's secure, and whatever our people have spoken, we're into. So I'm more confident now, guys. I mean, of course, we had this conversation about whether it should go into the Supreme Court. Personally, it's always been in the state that these kind of decisions should be made. So it's really still in the state that we're now going to make these decisions and tie this down so that we'll come out 2 years and 4 years from now that we know that it's done the way that we the people want it to be done.
Congressman, I so appreciated and loved your opening speech at the RNC. Obviously, based on your family history and your experience, you and your family have experienced real racism. What would you say to today's leftists that they think today is racist compared to what you know your grandparents, your dad, and yourself experienced?
Well, and let me just say this as a pretext to answering that. We're a country, and just like think about how we are as kids, and we grow up. Things we do when we say when we're kids, we say, man, how did I do that? How did I say that? Why did I? So we know that with maturity, we grow up, we have this way to look at ourselves and say, I want to be a much better person. I want to be a blessing to people versus being a taker. That's what we do as we grow up. And those who grow up and do it right, they're successful, they're respected, people want to be around them. That's our nation, by the way. We're a country that's been growing up because we're not perfect people. But we are today much better than we were 60 years ago when I was growing up in Tallahassee, Florida, in the segregated South. We're a place. My family speaks of that. When I was growing up, there was a movie. I don't know if you guys remember. It was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner?
Sidney Poitier.
It was a big deal because it was the first time on TV that it had a black and white couple dating. And if you remember that, you guys, they never touched each other. They never kissed. They just were at dinner together, and it was a big deal. Well, my family now, to give you an idea how far we've come, because in those days, interracial dating was just taboo, particularly down south. It wasn't going to happen. My first experience with white Americans came at the age of 16 years old. Today, my family of 6, I have 6 kids, and my kids have married. Their spouses it goes from black, white, American Indian, Hispanic. It is, you go across the board. I was talking about Trinidadian. That's the way we are, because at some point, we as Americans, we look at each other from inside out, not outside in. So that being said, I'll say this. What I did learn growing up in the South is there's 2 types of races. One is in your face. There's no shame, and you know who they are. They tell you who they are. You can expect certain actions from them. The good thing about those type of races is you know what to expect, and you can defend yourself. And basically, end of the day, those are the kind of races that the Black community beat. We just won big time. We led in terms of men to matriculate from college, men committed to marriage, percentage of entrepreneurs, because we knew those kind of races we can outwork them, we can outsmart them, we can make that happen. The worst type are the ones that look at you, you smile in your face, they pat you on the back, they give you a big hug, and as long as you act the way they think Black people should act, then they're just okay with you. But if you don't, you go another way, they're going to try to destroy you. So what we're seeing today, and it was very obvious with this happened with Tim Scott just recently, was a remarkable speech he gave with Black conservatives throughout, Condi Rice, Clarence Thomas. We have a group of people, I call elitists, that are the worst things that can happen in our country because they act like they love us, but they, in the end of the day, it's all about themselves. They want to make sure that people are kept low, kept without the idea of being independent. And as long as you are dependent on them, you're just okay with them. So just know that's what we're dealing with. And I think the great thing about this conversation we're having today, my friends, is we're now talking openly about this idea. What is true racism? How does it look? And when you have a party of leaders, elitists, that work very hard to make sure that Black people do not have education, do not have jobs. They're excited when we get on welfare. They're depressed when we become independent. That is a true racist ideology that we have to be careful about. And let's, for the good people out there, and I'm saying this to my Democratic friends and my Republican friends, independent, we have so much more in common that sometimes we're aware of. We love our country. We love each other. We want to do the very best we can. Sometimes we go at it different ways, but know together we can stand against the hard left, the radical Marxist and socialist left that hates all of us. They hate who we stand for. They hate our unity. So let's not let them win out. Let's make sure that we identify those who truly are not looking out for our best interests. Even though they might sound like it, they're not looking out for our best interests. And as long as we're talking, communicating, and being respectfully agreeing or disagree, we got this. We make sure we move forward with this in a big way.
I couldn't agree more. You know, we're still, Congressman, recovering from the pandemic. Many of us have been vaccinated. I've been vaccinated. My family have. A lot of people around us have. Cases are dwindling, and yet we're still required to wear masks. We can't gather. President Biden is telling us if we're good, we'll be able to have a small barbecue together on July 4th. What can we do to return to normal and to make people like Dr. Fauci see that a lot of the things he said has been very inconsistent and we're not accepting it? And how do we change things?
Well, let's first of all know that because you put a doctor in front of your name doesn't mean that you have all the answers, okay? No, the thing we have to recognize, this is why our history is so very important, because this is not the first time this attempt has been tried. It's called fear. There's a group of people that love to use fear to keep people bound, keep them down. It goes all. I mean, you go back to the history of my community. When you go Jim Crow or KKK, or you look at the Teeth of the Day. What do they bring to the plate? They bring fear, because they're bullies and they're cowards. And so what we have to do is first of all recognize that we are a free people, that we have the ability to take information, understand it, and then make decisions based on our best self-interest. Now, we came into this pandemic, nobody knew anything about it, so we were okay by giving up a little bit of our liberty. So for the good of our country, you had business owners. Think about this: business owners who spent their entire lives with their dreams and their putting everything in to making their dreams happen and their future they saw in this business. And they were able to pull back because for the good of our society, they thought this might be a good thing temporarily. Well, we have to now understand that fear doesn't work in this country, but we have to be bold. We have to understand what our freedoms are. And I think this is a good thing about, I say, the silver lining that I see happening for 2020. You know, when all of a sudden we wake up one day and we can't open our business, we can't put our kids in school, we can't go to church, we can't worship in the way we want to, that's the time where all of us come together and start having conversations, saying, no, this is not who we are. So I think the key is that we have to have these conversations, and we the people have to really take action. We cannot think that this is going to be solved by a president or representatives. It's we the people. It's moms and dads saying, you know what, I'm not going to let this happen to my child. And if they are dictating, we're going to go and talk to the school board, or I will become a school board member myself. I'm a guy who said I would never ever be a politician. I only decided to go this route because I realized that in DC, the kids that I'm working with, at-risk kids, Second Chance for Youth, did not have a chance if we don't change policy. So I felt maybe I can help change policies. Well, for people out there listening, moms and dads, maybe you can be the one that changed the way your school board is acting. You could, all kind of ways we can be engaged. And then we have to look at this as a team effort, but we have to be engaged. And we have to make sure that we do not let the left outwork us in these areas. So, I see a couple things happening. Within our DNA, we believe in freedom. We're already coming out to a point where we just love not having a mask on. I don't know how you guys feel, but I just love walking around just not having a mask on. Now, 2 years ago, we would never think about how great it would be not to walk around with a mask because we didn't. I just came back from Florida, and for the first time, seeing a lot of my fellow Congress people, men and women, for the first time, really without a mask, so I could really identify and talk, have these conversations. So let's do this. Let's first of all keep pressure on those who represent us. They work for us. We don't work for them. Let's also look at how can you, each one of you, become more involved. I know the freedom bubble sometimes allows us to disengage because we feel that it's going to stay this way. We cannot no longer feel that way. It was President Reagan said we're one generation away from losing it all. Well, we're that generation, my friends, and we need to really step to the plate and just use common sense. Uh, Force your congressmen and your representatives to do the right thing. And if they don't, vote them out. Vote for people who vote for freedom in the future.
Well, Congressman Owens, I couldn't agree more. Bruce and I, from the very beginning of the Jewish Republican Alliance, we've always said that your conservative activism is needed now more than ever to preserve the Judeo-Christian values upon which our beloved country was founded. But I have to share with you, I know that our fellow conservatives, there's so much to be upset about. There just really is. And I can tell you're an optimistic, can-do person. Can you share with us, whether as a dad, as a member of Congress, or just a wonderful citizen, give us some reasons for hope. Give us some reasons to be more optimistic, because there's a lot of negativity going on. It's getting to the best of us.
That's easy. Thank you for that soft pitch up, Mitch. First of all, we're Americans. I mean, let's start with that, okay? And this is why it's so important to know our history. It was Karl Marx, founder of communism, said the first battlegrounds rewriting of history. Why do the left want us to not know our history? Because from our history, we have an appreciation for our past. We have pride in who we are today, and we have a vision for our future. And so we start off with the idea of understanding that, first of all, we're a Judeo-Christian foundation. We're a country that began with people who believe there's a God in heaven. And we still are a country believing that. No matter how we might worship him, we know that we have with so much we can do. If we know that, and we look at our history and realize that we've had rougher times than today. We've had times of that we've been attacked from abroad. I mean, you think about Pearl Harbor, 9/11. What were we doing those days? We were running through our lives and doing what we normally do, and all of a sudden we wake up and find out we have enemy at our doorstep. Well, now we're realizing after 2020 that we have enemy at our doorstep. And when Americans wake up, there's no more powerful force than we the people. I really believe that. So not only are we going to start to see little things, little miracles, the miracle of flipping 15 seats and not losing one incumbent, my friends, is a miracle. That has to have, we haven't had this so close of a margin since World War II. Now, what does that mean to us? A couple of things. If the margin, I think, is 2 or 4 votes, it's very, very close. So you have moderates, those who want to stay in office. And I'll tell you, my Democratic colleagues want to stay in office. They love this profession. So they're not going to give up their lives, their careers just for whim. So if they want to keep in office, they're going to have to leave that left. They can't stay on that left ledge and know that they're going to stay around. So they're going to have to start coming back toward the middle, having conversations, having some bipartisan policies put in place that they can tout as that they are truly working together with us. At the same time, because of that push toward the center, they cannot continue to move as fast as they want to and getting a lot of these leftist things done with. So not only are we able to pull back and slow down this lurch to the left, but what American people more than ever has a chance now to see contrast. We all in life need to see contrast to move forward. We appreciate being a place of safety, being a place of less stress when we have gone through the total opposite of that. We're now talking about things, again, as I mentioned before, that we just have never talked about before. And because we see this contrast, we now see what freedom looks like, and we see what dependency and Marxism and socialism looks like. So I think that is going to be the greatest educator to us as a nation, as we now talk about, and one of the things, by the way, guys, that I was been very, very, very high on is the idea of choice, school choice. because I know what it's done for my family. What I did when I had a chance to go to good schools. At the same time, I'm watching what's happening to so many Black Americans who just don't have a choice, and the left doesn't care, and they leave without education, without it. So there's one thing I can talk about that. And a lot of Americans, particularly middle class in the right zip code, they have sympathy. They understand. They want to be helpful, but they can go on, move on, and live their life and not have to worry about it. All of a sudden, for an entire year, where everybody's talking about, no matter what zip code you live in, you can no longer put your kids in school. That becomes an empathy issue, not sympathy, but empathy. And once Americans have empathy for each other, we get things done with. So I think that's what's going to come out of 2020, is we have more empathy for those who have in the past have not had the opportunities for life, lived in pursuit of happiness. And because of that, we're going to end up coming out of this in a much, much stronger fashion. Sorry, there's a long answer to a short question, but I hope I got there.
It was a great answer, and people need to hear those words because they're really important words. And thank you so much for expressing them.
Can I say this? Can I say this, Bruce? Just
sure.
Because I think it's also important as we have this conversation that people have an idea of my background to this degree. It's important to recognize that this is a country that gives anyone, the opportunity to get the middle class. And it doesn't matter what our race is, how long we've been here, what our culture is, as long as we understand that it's all based on 4 tenets, and that is faith, family, education, and free market. Those 4 things will allow anyone within one generation to become part of the middle class. Now, I'm saying that coming from the perspective of being raised in a community that was totally segregated across our country. Again, as I mentioned before, my first real exposure with white Americans came at 16 years old. So what happened to the 40s, 50s, and 60s to the Black community? We were segregated, just like the Jewish community, the Italian community, the Polish community. We were not assimilating, but we all had this idea that if we just work hard, we command respect from our fellow Americans by winning. Well, what happened in the 40s, 50s, and 60s because of this attitude, this belief in our country and our desire to win? The Black American community led our country in the growth of the middle class. Men matriculated from college, men committed to marriage over 70%, and percentage of entrepreneurs over 40%. That 40% of business owners equated to 50 to 60% in the 1960s of Black Americans being part of the middle class, because you have businesses everywhere, whether it be Perkins Service Station or Speed's grocery store or Baker's Pharmacy or Black Hospital with nothing but Black nurses, Black doctors, Black lawyers. This is what I grew up with, guys. So guess what? When I went to the University of Miami and I decided I want to be a marine biologist, I had no doubt I can do it if I worked hard enough, because I saw it around me. I was encouraged. And we knew that we worked hard, we studied hard. And by the way, it didn't come easy. I lived in the library for 4 years. If I wasn't on the football field, man, you can find me in the library because I had to work for it. But that's what we were taught. So my message is, if that's our history, why is it now in 2021 do we have so much failure? How can we now in 2021 say that 75% of the Black boys in the state of California, based on the Department of Education study, cannot pass standard reading and writing tests? How can we in Baltimore have so many schools that have zero proficiency in math? This is not normal. How can we have only 3.8% of Black Americans now business owners versus when I grew up at 40%? These are policies. And so my point is, and I'm hoping I can make this strong enough. No, it is not normal for Blacks to have so much crime, so much illiteracy, so much unemployment, so much single family homes. It's not normal, my friends. This is on purpose. It's been done by policies. And what's happened to my community is what the left is trying to do to our country. And I can stand as a warning boy, as my race can stand as a warning boy and say, let's not let that happen to us. We cannot afford to let those folks do what they did to my community, do to our country. And we now understand, we're waking up. And it's because we know that they're not going to win this for sure.
Well, I'm so glad you said that. We just had the very low rated Academy Awards here in Los Angeles. And what I read is what they did was right before they had the Academy Awards, they went in and they started trying to clean up areas that may be filmed, almost like a communist country, like cleaning it up for the public. But in reality, when you go into Los Angeles, when you go into big cities like Chicago and other areas like Baltimore, you see people living in tents, and we are a rich nation. We have a nation of unlimited potential, as you said, for anyone who wants to work hard. But how do we make areas safe and convince people that they can buy into that American dream and make safe cities for everyone all over? It has to be difficult to live in a place where you're surrounded like that for anyone.
Well, first thing, if you're right, you go to China, that's exactly what they do when they take their tours. They clean up an area, move people out, and then let them come back when everybody's gone. No, how do we do this? Well, how about if we start electing the conservatives, first of all, folks who truly love our country. I grew up very simply. I'll tell you how simple it was for me growing up as a kid in my community. I was taught to love God, country, family, and respect women in authority, period. I had a dad in my household. If I did anything that was off track, he would make sure I stayed back on track quickly. So I would say this is part of this is just have this conversation. This has been a progressive role for a long, long time. So it didn't happen overnight. And that's why, again, after my 60-year experience, I can see what happened to my community and what is now happening to our country. So I make this very easy connection with me. So what we have to do is, first of all, start talking again about what will make our country great. Do not let people divide us by, first of all, putting other races down. Anyone who says white privilege is putting down the Black race. Understand that. If you say that because you're white skinned, you don't have to work as hard, or you don't have to study as hard, you're saying, first of all, you're saying you're putting my race down as someone who cannot do what you do normally. That you have to lower the bar so I can step over. That is an insult. And my parents' generation looked at that big time as a big insult. They would never stand for that kind of stuff. So let's first of all recognize who we are by learning our history. Understand that the only way that the left works is through propaganda. And now that we understand, because of the Trump legacy, understand how that works, and recognize that they have for a long time gone after our institutions to undermine us. They've gone after our education. They've gone after the government. We have bureaucrats who hide behind their titles, and we have no idea who they are, and they'll stay there and hate our country. We'll never know how to dig them out. We have colleges now that have no shame. We send our kids going there with man, the tails are wagging, just can't wait to go. They're just excited about living their dreams. They come out not only with unbelievable debt, with a degree that means nothing, but hating our country. So there are things we have to do now to recognize these problems. Part of it is allowing the Republican Party to get back in power in 2022 in a big way. So when it comes down to these colleges, we can hold them accountable. If they cannot give us a good product, and there's the kids that love our country that can produce and compete against anyone around the world, they can't do that. Hey, that's okay. We'll just put our money in places that will do that. It's called the free market. It's called competition. If you want to pay leftists, Marxists, hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach, that's go for it. Use your own endowment, though. We'll use our money and put it where colleges where our teachers are truly showing what it's all about. And I would love, by the way, to get to position. One of the greatest professions in our country are good teachers. My dad was a teacher. My mom was one. I know the power of when kids can learn how to critical think, and they can learn about who they are and what the potential might be. I think it should be a system in place where the good teachers make great income. I mean, seriously, because they are competing and they're rewarded for their efforts and their success. And those who can't, find another profession. I mean, if you can't do that, if you can't compete, go do something else. Just don't get around our kids. So those kind of things we can have conversations about. But I think the most important thing is now in this phase here that we're in, let's have civil conversations. When we sit down with our friends on the other side of the aisle, Democrats, my brothers and sisters are very, very strong Democrats, and I love them dearly. So we have conversations where we can say, no, let's respectfully agree to disagree, but let's find those things that we can agree on. We should all be able to agree on the fact, for instance, our borders should be sealed. Should not have human trafficking. We should not have these kids coming up here without their parents. This is evil. If we can agree on that, let's see, how do we fix that piece? How do we stand together, make sure that the entry fee to come into our country is not abuse?
Women and children should not feel that the only way I get to America is through abuse. That should not be happening. Or the only way we should get to America is by giving the cartel $500 million per month. So if we can start working around those kind of conversations, and you're right, we should have no city where people are living on the streets, and that is just the way of life. So if we can come around, how do we fix that? Those things we can agree on, we can begin that process, and we find the bigger issues down the road as we move through that, navigate through that conversation.
You know, Congressman, there's a joke that in the last 12 months, the part of our body that's been watched the most has been our hands, but I disagree, it's been our brains. And you pointed out so many amazing things. When we, at the State of the Union the other night, and the media daily, they lie, and they call us a terrible country, and they get away with it. It works. They continue to do it. It works. So my question to you is, there are so many good, wonderful people in our lives that have been brainwashed, and how do we shake them? So you talk about the power of the American people waking up. You can't wake them up if they believe these lies are being fed, and you get away with it.
A couple things. We have to be the people, the party of patience and tolerance. We really have to be. It's so easy to get caught up into this argument culture we now have, where we're defending ourselves and we're fighting back. For those, there's a group, a majority of Americans truly want our country to thrive and move forward and for us to come together. There's a fringe that doesn't believe that. We cannot spend time trying to convince the fringe. They're who they are. Many of them are soulless. They don't think anymore. They some of them just wake up every single day. How can I go destroy somebody's life? They love that. But the majority of us can't have a conversation. So what I say, you be the one that there's a thermostat in the conversation you're having. If you start to see that it's getting a little bit, it's drifting the wrong direction, just slow it down. Say, listen, let's change the subject. Let's agree to disagree, and let's go in another direction. So that would be, I guess, the biggest way is how do we control the negative narrative. And here's the other thing that I think as conservatives we can do. Let me tell you a real quick story about something I watched my dad in terms of principle, because principle is what our country has always stood on. We have been a nation of principles. We stand by them. When I was maybe 10 years old, we would go back and forth from Tallahassee to Texas. And in those days, you had segregated at a restroom stop at a service station. You had a white women's only, a white men's only, and in the back you had colored. It's always filthy bathroom with a colored for Black Americans. Now my mom and dad never went into the colored. My mom went into, in this case here, went into a white women's only restroom. And I was sitting in the back of this car, maybe 10, 12 years old, and these two guys, the white guys, come and try to knock down the door to get her out. And I watched my dad get up, go around and take care of both of them. I mean, it was a remarkable thing to see the courage that he had. And basically what it showed me right off the bat is what men do. Men do certain things when it comes down to protecting womanhood. It doesn't matter what the odds are. It's just what we do. Now, that was just the first piece of understanding what manhood was all about. The one that took about 50 years to understand. The next one was, I just happened to, when we went back home, my parents never talked about it again. They didn't sit down and say, these are bad people. They moved on about their business. But I remember walking past my mom's room, and my dad was telling my mom he was going to cut up the card, this particular service station, this national chain. He's going to cut up the card, and he cut it up. And about 50 years later, my dad and I, a couple years before he passed away, we were just talking about old times. And I asked him if he remembered that particular situation where he had to deal with these guys at the service station. And he said, yeah, Burgess, I sure do. And I never bought another drop of gas from that service station for the rest of my life. So now that, to me, that was, and did it make a difference to the gas chain? Absolutely not. It made a difference to him all these years because he said he kept his word, and it made a difference to me because I now understood that principle is long term. It's not just for the moment. It's when it's inconvenient. Why will I not watch football until they fire Coach Cordell? Because what the NFL has done to our country is not a good thing. It's dividing us. It's prioritizing China over America. Oh gosh, why will I not drink Coke? Well, because they decided they're going to jump and get into politics and show that they're leftists instead of Americans. So there are things that I will do, and I will say this for Americans listening: you decide what area to you is important, but it will take some sacrifice. It will take sacrifice in something that you enjoy to show that based on principles you will not enjoy it, because your dollars will not go to that anymore. And I think that these entertainers, these politicians, those who take us for granted, they need to know that no, we won't be marching and burning down buildings and cursing and all that. We won't do that, but we will stop paying you. We'll start putting our money into your pockets, and we'll start voting for you. We'll do that, and that's much more of a longer term impact. So I would hope everybody looks at across the board. If you see leftists trying to stomp on our freedoms, trying to intimidate us, how about just not putting any more dollars in their account? And eventually, as a people, we'll show that that does add up.
Thank you for expressing that. It's so refreshing to have a good man with principles in office. That makes all the difference. I have a two-part question. One is from our audience. His name is Matt R. And his question is, it's an honor to listen to you today. How can Black leaders like you and Senator Tim Scott help break through to bring significant numbers of the Black population to vote Republican and to reverse the decades of lies and disillusion Democrats have sold them? And the second part is my question is,
Okay.
I am outraged that intelligent people like Barack Obama, LeBron James are able to get away and insult Black people and saying they can't get IDs to vote. And I think it's outrageous and insulting, and I don't understand their point and how they get away with it. So that's my two-part question.
Okay, let's start with the first one. I think that's a good way to start. Know that American people are already doing the right things. American people, no matter what color you are, we're rolling up our sleeves, we're helping other people, we're being nice. Yeah, there's a fringe. There will always be racism in any society because there are people who decide they drift toward the darkness. But in our country, we have more and more people that love to help, support, and serve. So I would say this: we're already beginning to win the fight, and I think President Trump was kind of a way to start the process, because what he did, he put in place policies that were American policies, not Black, not white, not Hispanic, American policies that allowed us to win. Think about this, guys. In 4 years, the lowest unemployment in the history of our country for Blacks, Hispanics, Asian, women, veterans. You had a 400% increase in Black business ownership, 400% increase in Black business ownership. What does that say to Black Americans? I trust in the free market. I trust my dreams. I'm willing to go in and take a risk, get in this community and spend my time and leave something for my kids and leave a good name behind me. That's a powerful concept when we start to lean into business ownership. So with that being said, the result of that is 18% of Black men voted for President Trump, an all-time high. Double the Black women doing the same, an all-time in terms of voting of Hispanic and Asian and the gay community. All those were drifting in the right direction. So what does that say? Why is the left just so frantic and so loud and so much in your face? Because they recognize they're losing us. We're leaving the plantation. It will not be just Burgess Owens and Tim Scott. It's going to be people you'll never hear their names. Moms who are saying, you know what, I'm tired of my kids not having an opportunity. Dads who are saying, I'm tired of being put down and told I can't achieve and do what other people do because of the color of my skin. Young people that are waking up and building friendships across the line, and it doesn't matter the color anymore. That's what's happening in our country. And because of that, the left has to have open borders, because they cannot survive if they go from 93% of Black Americans who voted for them down to 90 to 85 to 80. When they start losing, and by the way, all it takes is 25% of Black Americans to turn their backs on them, and they're gone. So they know that we're leaving the plantation, and that's why they're frantically and with no apologies and no shame opening the borders and allowing people to be used, abused, and discarded for their power. And we have to understand what they're trying to do in that area. So I would say this: just keep being the best American you can be. Just keep looking at how can you surround yourself with the best people that you can possibly surround yourself with, and you'll find that it will have nothing to do with color, have nothing to do with height, nothing to do with religion. You just want to win, baby, as Al Davis used to say. And it doesn't matter who it is around you to make that happen. So just keep being the best American you can be, and that will automatically happen. And now be engaged so that we are voting out these bad actors who are trying to divide us. Now, to the other part, let me tell you what the greatest gift of President Obama. he was such a lousy president that people woke up and started saying, whatever happened to hope and change? What we did as Americans, and I'll say this, because I didn't vote for President Obama, but a lot of people did. I think most Americans figured out this is the chance finally to put behind us all the divisiveness. This is our chance to come together as Americans to show that we're not a racist country. And we celebrated as a nation. Even though I didn't vote for President Obama, I was so excited my dad had a chance to see in his lifetime that we as a country had just voted the first Black president in our history. Well, unfortunately, he was the wrong guy. He was a guy that does not love our country. He's a guy that loves the left, and his policies, he was the one who put into our system the critical race theory that we're now trying to get out of our, like little termites, trying to get them out of our system. He's the one that started turning us against our police. At first it was white police, now it's all police. So no, I think history is going to show, because history will always in our country show itself at some point, the true part of history. It's going to show that those are the worst things we could have ever done in terms of unity of our nation. But at the same time, it'll show the opportunity that we have had with the hard left and bring them out of from behind the curtains, how now that we understand who they are, how we're going to come back real strong and be even a more united country and an educated country, and one that will appreciate our past more so, because we now know what we're up against. So yes, we unfortunately we have to look back and be disappointed in the opportunity he had. He didn't take advantage of it, but the opportunity we have moving forward is going to be even greater, because we will come back together, my friends. That's what we do. We just win, baby. And once we understand we're in a fight, so I look forward to that.
Love the Al Davis reference. Congressman, we have two questions that are rather similar combined, one from Max I and the other from Ron C. And it talks about there's so much infighting in the Republican Party, but the Democrats always, come together. They're so united. How do we fight fire with fire? How do we combat that?
Well, we're coming together, and just keep in mind there's two different ideologies. The one thing about the Republican Party and freedom and critical thinking, we're always going to have different ways of going at things. We're going to have a sense of freedom and independence that's just intertwined into our ideology. If you look at the left, you look at what socialism and Marxism, every decision comes from up top. It doesn't come from the members. It comes from one person who says, if you don't do this, you're not going to be around any longer. We're going to destroy you. So they come together because they have to. There's fear. It's driven by fear. And you wonder, you're going to start to see people, for instance, one of the things that AOC just recently sent out $5,000 to all their members. You know who starts sending that money back? Those moderates who are in tough districts that are at risk. They don't want any association with AOC, so they start sending their money back. So just know it is part of who we are that we're going to disagree at times. That's America. That's what kind of makes us the great country we are. So what we do with that is we try to hone our conversation so we can convince other people to come our way. What the left has done in one way, again, this is my first time in this position. I'm seeing so much more unity though in different factions that in the past might not have been as unified, because we know we have the same end game, and that is to defeat the Democratic Party in 2022. So yes, you're gonna see independent people thinking, talking a little bit different, but under the leadership of McCarthy, we are truly a united front. We have this, the end of the day, it comes down to this: do your thing, make sure you talk with your constituency, make sure they know your voice, make sure though in 2022 you come back, you win. And then we're going to add on top of that more of people out there that from every background. I have Black friends right now, Kathy up in Pennsylvania, that is actually doing some good things up there. And it's just some good across the board. We have a lot of people to be running this time around, and we're going to start doing some good things with that. So just look to find folks that you can support, that make sure that when we come to 2022, we're in the fight and we can have the best chance of getting this thing back.
Well, we're right behind you on that. We have a question from Terry P. His question is, you come to office with such high aspirations and goals to get things done for the people who have elected you. What has surprised you, if anything, once you've come to Washington? that you didn't realize before being elected?
Well, I think part of the advantage I have is that this is all new to me. So this is normal to me, believe it or not. Uh, I guess to a degree, when I guess because also I do understand a little bit about the way the left thinks of understanding. So nothing really surprised me of what they will do and not do. Um, I would say to to see so far how well those moderates have stood in line. I'm still waiting to see at what point will they start to break away. So I guess my question is, it's not going to be the first couple of months. Maybe it'll be the second quarter that they'll start doing it. But other than that, um, and I guess I'm thinking through this. I also, as we talked about before, the unity. We do have a remarkable team here, and even though it might not appear that we're as unified outside our caucus, our conference, I'm not seeing that inside. I see conversations by people who might be very, very conservative and those who might be not quite as conservative, but we have the same end game. So that unity has been a rewarding process for me to see and understand and to experience also.
Terrific. Congressman, I think we'll have time for one last question. There's a question from Matt R. He starts out with saying it's an honor to watch you and listen to you today. We admire people like you and Senator Tim Scott. You talked about if it gets to 25% game over, but how do you get more of the Black population to realize that all these Democrats that have been in charge of all these cities for decades are not their friends, are not helping their lives? How do you break through to them?
And this is, I guess, where, from my perspective of watching this for the last 30 years, I became a Republican with Ronald Reagan. He was my transitional president, and I've been a big C ever since. Well, actually, I've always been a president, conservative. I was just like many Black Americans voting for the wrong side. I would say this: if you can find Black conservatives across this country and make sure that you're supporting them, what the biggest threat to liberals is an independent Black successful conservative, because they give hope, they give a message to those trying to be like them. If you think about who the left loves to portray and to uplift, is athletes who are socialists, it's rappers who can't speak without cursing and who have not committed to their families. They highlight the worst of American. When I say the worst of America, those who love our country, they do not talk about. All of a sudden, you have a Tim Scott who has such a remarkable presence in that regard. You have a Candace Owens. You have a Larry Elders. You have a Burgess. You have people who say, you know what? I don't care what you call me. Call me anything you want to. I love my country. I'm not going to apologize for it. Period. All of a sudden, you see that kind of boldness, and you have young people seeing that, and they will respect it. Might not have the courage to do the same thing initially, but they will respect it, and eventually they'll get in the habit of standing for themselves. So if I can say this, how can you help? Look across this country when it comes to 2022, find Black Americans, find Hispanic Americans, conservative Hispanic Americans, find women, conservative women who truly stand for the right. Because our voices that have not been heard forever, basically, we're now beginning to see only in one party. One thing about the Democratic Party, that's always been the case, they take for granted the vote of those who they oversee. In the past, the Republican Party never thought they can do it, so they just never tried. Both of those are not good for those who are trying to live the American dream. The Republican Party now is saying, I'm gonna go for your vote. Matter of fact, it was Donald Trump who came out with the New Deal for urban America. The first time I've ever seen it. And I had some concerns. I had some doubts about candidate Trump at the time. I didn't know a lot about him, but I read, and if you go to the internet, you still see it. You might have to dig for it, but it's the New Deal for urban Americans, 10 points of things he's going to do to make sure that the Black Americans live the American dream. Education, opportunity zones, you go through the list. And I said, if he does this, he could be one of the greatest presidents in our history. So he did that not only for the Black community, but every community, because it's all about American policies. So if you can do this, my friends, talk about how you can help, become aware, look at how you can be a team player to find those around the country that can represent our party in the diversity we truly are anyway. that represents our hearts. If we do that, then they're going to become even more desperate to try to hold on, and they can't beat us up. They can't bully us. That's not our DNA to go for that stuff. So just do what you can, roll up your sleeves. One last comment. The thing I love, for those who remember Al Davis Just Win Baby days, the Al Davis Raiders, what made him so unique was that this was a place of second chances, place that where players were either too old, too rambunctious, too rebellious to work on any other team. Al Davis said, just come here, show up on Sundays, and you can be part of the Raider culture. And once a Raider, always a Raider. That's our nation. We have all kind of backgrounds and all kind of ups and downs we go through. But if we just show up on Sunday, put ourselves on the field, just make sure that works, then we all walk away with the championship ring. That's what it comes down to. So just be the best you can be. Be proud of who you are. Don't apologize for being who we are. And if you have to learn our history, learn your history. But man, we have nothing to apologize for. All right.
Congressman Owens, it's been an honor and a privilege to have you on our show. Thank you so much for being so gracious with your time and giving our listeners the gift of your words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the opportunity. And like I said, my wish list, I'm going to Israel this year. Cannot wait. So I'm all in. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. And again, it's a team effort, and we win at the end of the day for this, for sure.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being on the show today and joining us and listening to Burgess Owens. What can you do? You can stay informed, get involved, and make a difference. Join our conversations, attend events. Yes, we're going to have live events soon in the second half of the year. Participate in our social media, network, get involved by joining our alliance, get on a committee, volunteer, refer a friend, make a difference by becoming a member, make a tax donation, a tax deductible donation to the JRA, start a chapter. Our organization is growing and you can be a part of it. Thank you so much for being here. Our website, jewishrepublicanalliance.org. Until we talk again, we'll talk to you very soon. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Thank you, Burgess.
Take care, guys.